A lot of times during the interview process, you might be asked to describe DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name System, and this is the system to look up between domain names and IP addresses, which uses port 53 for TCP protocol and is also available on UDP. If you type google.com in your internet browser, computer doesn't know what is google.com, and it asks DNS server to do the lookup. DNS system makes it possible for us to type google.com and instead get connected to IP address 216.58.192.174. By the way, you can make a cool experiment and type this IP address right in your browser, and when you hit enter, you will get right into google.com. But I bet you might realize that it's much easier by just typing google.com. DNS architecture on the internet is very sophisticated, and it consists of 4 different layers: DNS recursor, root server, TLD namespaces, as well as authoritative name server. Microsoft Windows Server provides DNS app to help manage DNS in Windows Active Directory architecture. Inside DNS app, you can configure forward lookup zones, reverse lookup zones, trust points, conditional forwarders, and a lot of other things. The query to translate website name into IP address is only one type of queries that DNS provides. In addition to this query, DNS allows for recursive queries, iterative queries, and non-recursive queries. DNS is extremely fascinating topic. If you're interested in DNS, I recommend you type in Google these additional queries for DNS security, DNS zones, DNS root server, primary and secondary DNS, as well as reverse DNS. A lot of times, you might be asked a question during the interview process: what is Active Directory? Active Directory is the directory service which contains the database which was designed and created by Microsoft. Initially, it was only used for centralized domain management, but over the years, it became an umbrella title for the broad range of directory-based services. In addition, for storing user accounts, computers, printers, and all other connected devices information in Active Directory, it also became a place for centralized security and network configuration management. Active Directory stores all information organized in organizational units. Each organizational unit contains user, groups, computers, and other devices information. Organizational units are stored hierarchically and allow easy management by network administrators. A lot of times, you might be asked the question, where is Active Directory databases located on Windows Server? To make Active Directory services possible, multiple files are involved, but all of these files are located in the system root NTDS folder, which is typically C Windows NTDS. To navigate to this folder, you need to log in with administrative account to Windows Server, go to Drive C, navigate to Windows, find NTDS folder, and open the database files. Keep in mind that sometimes your extensions to the files may not be visible. To enable extensions, you need to click View in the File Explorer, select Options, navigate to View, and choose the right set of options for you to see everything you would like to see. A lot of times during the interview process, you might be asked the question, how do you install Windows Server? Even though there are multiple ways you can utilize to install Windows Server, including attended and unattended installations, one of the most common and easiest way is to install using virtualization software. For example, you can pick among multiple different choices available for virtualization software like Vmware Workstation Pro, VirtualBox from Oracle, or Microsoft's virtual machine. Download trial version from Microsoft and install Windows Server in the virtual environment. To download Windows Server trial in Google, all you need to do is type the keyword in Google and it will take you to the right place. Because we're trying to download and install on the desktop, this is considered on-premises option, and we need to click Download Free Trial option that's relevant to that option. Depending upon what you're trying to accomplish, you can download Windows Server Installer in 3 different formats. ISO files is mimicking DVD file, so it's an equivalent of you getting virtual DVD. Azure will give you the file for Azure environment, and VHD option will give you the file for Hyper-V. Keep in mind that there are also other options available for Windows Server. We've selected the basic options for Windows Server 2019, but there is also Windows Server 2019 Essentials, Hyper-V, as well as the Admin Center application that complements Windows Server installation. Because I will be installing Windows Server on VMware Workstation Pro, I will choose ISO option and download the ISO image. If you do not own the license to VMware Workstation Pro, you can in a very similar way, by typing keywords VMware Workstation Pro trial, find the link to the trial download. The latest version of VMware Workstation Pro at the time of this recording is version 16, but I will be using the version 15.5 because this is what I have license for. You can complete Windows Server installation in 4 steps. Fourth step is optional, but definitely recommended. You start installation by downloading trials. If you do not have virtualization environment trial, you can try VMware Workstation Pro or use other software that's available to you. You can also download Microsoft Windows Server trial. For the purposes of this demo, I downloaded ISO file. In step 2, you need to configure virtual machine. To configure virtual machine, you need to go step by step through the virtual machine creation process wizard. To start the process, you click on the Create New Virtual Machine button. Most of the time, I choose Custom option because it allows me the most control. On this screen, you need to choose compatibility options of the virtual machine that you are creating. Because I'm using the most recent version of VMware Workstation 15.5, I'm okay choosing the latest compatibility. But if you are concerned and only have access to the previous versions of VMware, you choose the option here which is the best for you. On this screen, I typically choose I will install the operating system later because it allows the best control. And I will be able to adjust and change settings if necessary before starting the installation. Here you choose the version of operating system that you're trying to install. In addition to Windows, VMware Workstation Pro can also install Linux as well as VMware ESX or other operating systems. If you choose the version that you're trying to install, VMware will try to pre-select and download template with remaining settings. Because there is no option of Windows Server 2019, the closest option will be Windows Server 2016, and this is what I will choose here for this installation. On this screen, you can give your virtual machine a name and choose where virtualization files will be located. During Windows Server installation, you need to make one of 4 choices. You have 2 server editions, Standard and Data Center, and you have 2 server forms, Desktop Experience and Server Core. I will be installing Standard Edition with Desktop Experience. And to be able to quickly identify my virtual machine, I am giving it the name that most describes what's in this virtual machine. Windows Server Standard 2019 with Desktop Experience. On the firmware screen, I choose UEFI. UEFI is the more modern replacement of BIOS. When you choose UEFI, one of the biggest benefits is that it provides secure boot, as well as it allows you to boot from the large hard drives. Drives with sizes 2.2 terabytes or larger, and the theoretical limit of UEFI is 9.4 zettabytes. I will not choose UEFI Secure Boot, but you can choose your option based on your needs. In the processor configuration screen, I will choose 2 processors and 1 core per processor, with the 2 total cores available to my virtual machine. On the memory screen, I will choose 2 gigabytes of RAM. Keep in mind that this option can be changed later. For example, if you feel that your virtual server needs more memory. I will choose Network Address Translation to allow my virtual machine to connect to the internet. I will go with the LSI Logic SAS, which is the recommended option by VMware, because it will provide fastest throughput for my virtual machine. And for the disk type, I will go with Non-Volatile Memory Express option, which is the fastest in today's world and recommended by VMware. Because this is going to be a new installation of Windows Server, I will choose an option Create New Virtual Disk, and I will choose the size of 256 gigabytes. As well as I will choose the option of storing virtual disk in a single file, because this is the fastest option. I will also include the size of the drive into the file name, so I will be able to quickly identify the size in the file system. In the last step, I can quickly validate the settings to make sure I selected all the options correctly and customize the hardware if necessary. To install Windows Server on VMware Workstation Pro, we need to insert ISO file into the virtual DVD. To do that, we double-click on the CD DVD/SATA, and here there is a room to insert ISO image file, where you would need to point to the ISO file that you've downloaded. Once you select the file, VMware Workstation accepts the new path, and you need to click OK. Next step is to power on this virtual machine and follow the installation process. Windows Server installation is done in the form of wizard, and most of the common choices are pre-selected for you by Microsoft. On this screen, I would recommend you click Next unless you're planning to make any changes. Here you need to click Install Now button. I'm not planning to enter product key, so I will select I do not have a product key option. On this screen, you need to select the configuration that you're trying to install. Windows Server comes in two editions, Standard Edition and Data Center Edition. Each of the editions comes in two forms. Edition with the desktop experience, where you have GUI interface to manage your Windows Server, or Server Core, where you manage your server from command line. For my installation, I am going to select Windows Server 2019 Standard Edition with desktop experience. On this screen, I am going to accept license terms and click Next. I am doing custom brand new installation, so I am going to choose custom option and select the option Install Windows Only. This option shows us the virtual hard drive that we've created, and this will be the destination for Windows Server installation. I'm going to select this hard drive and click Next. This process triggered the installation, and Windows is going to complete installation step by step. Unlike desktop Windows installation, Windows Server installation keeps administrator account enabled. And in this step of the wizard, you need to configure password for your administrative account. Once you configure the password by entering it twice, you click the Finish button. To log in into your Windows Server installation, you need to press Ctrl-Alt-Delete button. But because this is a virtual environment, pressing Ctrl-Alt-Delete will do it on the host machine. So instead, you click on VM and you use Send Ctrl-Alt-Delete command to the virtual machine. Once password is entered, you push the Enter button, and it gets you in. When you log in into the Windows Server environment on VMware Workstation Pro for the first time, you see that the screen is small. You also see that you do not have a network connection. The main reason for that is because Windows Installation Wizard doesn't recognize VMware, and you need to install latest VMware tools and drivers. VMware provides default way to do it by showing the installation toolbar at the bottom of VMware Workstation. If you click Install Tools, all it's going to do is going to insert predefined ISO file into the DVD drive of the virtual workstation. I'm going to click Install Tools button and navigate to the File Explorer inside Windows Server. As you can see, the virtual DVD was inserted into the virtual DVD drive. You can access it by clicking this PC and navigating to the DVD drive. Once there, you can trigger the installation process for VMware tools. If you just follow the wizard and use typical installation options, you will install all the latest drivers for VMware Workstation Pro. And this would allow you to run the application full screen and get the network connection. Typically, at the end of the process, it is a good idea to reboot the server to make sure all the driver installations took effect. Very frequently, you might be asked the question during the interview process: how do you configure Active Directory domain controller on Windows Server? You can promote Windows Server to domain controller in 5 easy steps. As a first step, you need to select Active Directory domain services as well as DNS server. During the installation process, you need to select and configure New Forest, as well as you also will be prompted and you will be required to configure password for Directory Service Restore mode. And once all the setup is complete, you would need to use installed Active Directory tools for Active Directory management. To promote Windows Server into domain controller, you need to navigate to the Server Manager. In the upper right corner of the Server Manager, you need to click Manage button and select Add Roles and Features. You need to click Next on the first step of the wizard, select Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation in the next step, select the server, which in my case I only have one server in this configuration, and click Next. Select Active Directory Domain Services, which will give you a lot of other options that needs to be installed automatically selected for you by Windows Installer. So I'm going to select Add Features here on the screen. You also need to select DNS Server option, which will come with additional set of sub-options. I'm going to click Add Features and move to the next step. This message indicates that I do not have static IP configured for this server, which in my case, I'm only doing this for training purposes, so which is going to be okay. It might be the same for you, or it might be different. I'm going to click Continue and click Next. I'm not going to select any additional new features as part of this promotion. I'm going to click Next. This is the confirmation of what we are about to do. We're about to promote Windows Server into Active Directory Server. I'm going to click Next. This is additional description of what Windows Domain Controller with DNS will be doing. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to select this option to restart the destination server automatically, if it is required. And going to click a confirmation Yes here. And as a last step here, I'm going to click Install. Once installation is complete, you need to click Close button and go through the reboot process. After the first reboot, server still wasn't promoted to domain controller. You need to complete some additional steps to finish the installation of Active Directory. You navigate to ADDS option in the Server Manager, and you see that configuration required for Active Directory domain services. When you click More, it shows you the remaining steps. I'm going to select Promote the server to domain controller. In this step, you need to select Add a new forest and put some thoughts and consideration of how are you going to name your root domain. Because I'm only doing it for demonstration purposes, I'm going to select a generic name, ad.local. But your selection on this step might be very different. You need to do more research because it is hard to change this particular configuration. I'm going to click Next. In this step, I am going with the default choices provided by Windows Server. The only thing I need to enter here is Directory Services Restore Mode password. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to leave Create DNS Delegation option unchecked and click Next. I'm going to confirm name AD for NetBIOS domain name and click Next. I'm going to leave the default folders selected by Windows Server and click Next. Confirm all the settings that I have selected and click Next. This last step triggered the installation and actual reconfiguration of the server into Active Directory domain controller. Windows Server provided me with some warnings which I am going to ignore because this is a test environment, and I am going to click Install to trigger reconfiguration and promotion of the server into Windows Server domain controller. After reboot, when you log in into the Windows Server, you need to select the option of AD/administrator, which will indicate that we are signing on into Active Directory. Windows Server added tools to manage Active Directory. To access them, you need to click the Start button, navigate to Windows Administrative Tools, and select, based on what you're trying to accomplish, the right tool. I'm going to select Active Directory Users and Computers because it provides the full visibility to the domain that was just created. A lot of times, you might be asked a question during the interview process on how Windows Server is used by the organizations. Windows Server can play different roles based on organizational needs. It can be a web server using IIS, Internet Information Server technology from Microsoft. It can help companies deploy Windows on the workstations using Windows deployment services. It can play a role of Active Directory domain controller, be a DHCP server, DNS server, provide virtualization using Hyper-V technology. It can be a print and document service, as well as the file server. There are multiple ways to see all available roles Windows Server can play right inside Windows Server. Right now, I'm inside Server Manager, and I can see available roles by navigating to Manage, Add Roles and Features. I go through the wizard, and as one of the steps in the wizard, Windows Server allows me to see the full list of roles available. A lot of times, you might be asked the question, what are the available editions of Windows Server? There are 2 editions of latest version of Windows Server that are available, Standard Edition and Data Center Edition. There are also 2 server forms, Server Core and Server Desktop Experience. For example, this is Windows Server Standard Edition with desktop experience. To find out what is the edition that we're using, we click on the Start button, type System, select System Information, and we can see that this is Microsoft Server 2019 Standard Edition. In contrast, Windows Server Core will only allow you to access the server through command prompt, either using default commands for Windows Server, through command prompt, or using PowerShell. During Windows Server installation, user is presented with the screen similar to what you see on the left-hand side of the screen. You have multiple choices for each edition. For example, for Standard Edition, you can select Server Core, which is the first choice, or you can select Standard Desktop Experience. In very similar way, you can make selections for Data Center Edition. A lot of times, you might be asked a question during the interview, what is the latest version of Windows Server? You can always check the latest version of Windows Server by navigating into Settings. For example, if you click Start button, navigate to Settings, select System, select About, and scroll down to Windows Specifications, you can see the edition of your server and version that is currently installed on your server. The latest version of Windows Server at the moment of this video is Windows Server 2019. It has two editions, Standard Edition and Data Center Edition. Microsoft continues to improve the server versions though, and they continue to add additional functionality. The latest release Microsoft is currently testing is 20H2, and if you would like to learn more, you can type in Google Windows 20H2 and a lot of information is available. A lot of times, you might be asked the question, how do you patch Windows Server with latest security patches and updates? Also, you might be asked why this is important. Over the years, Microsoft almost automated the patching process, and it happens semi-automatically. As an administrator, you can postpone and delay it a little bit, but you cannot stop it, unless you use tricks and hacks in the registry. To check current status of updates and patches on Windows Server, you click the Start button, type Check for Updates, and select Windows Update Settings or Check for Updates, depending what you're trying to accomplish. As you can see, I have updates available, and in order for me to install them, I can click Install Now button, which triggers update installation. To optimize Windows Update installation based on organizational needs, you can change active hours, you can view update history, and you can view advanced options. In advanced options, you can customize updates delivery based on your needs. You can change update options, update notifications, and pause updates if this is what you're trying to accomplish. There are three main reasons why installing latest updates on Windows Server is important. Number one is that updates patch security holes and make your installation of Windows more secure. Hackers take advantage of Windows updates, and if you don't patch, they can access and compromise your system remotely through the network. In addition, installing latest updates improves user experience and fixes software bugs to improve compatibility. This is typically not as important as patching security holes, but it does provide some productivity improvements and access to latest features to enhance your Windows Server experience. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Skills that you learn here will be helpful for you now and also in the future. You also get opportunity to help other people by answering their questions and helping them solve their challenges. If you like the content, please give this video a big thumbs up. This tells us that you need more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.